Hi, Bernina Jeff here from High Fashion Sewing Machines and Quilt Shop in Grand Junction, Colorado. I have another series of tips for the 7 series, the 5 series, and the 4 series. And these tips are fantastic, so watch it all the way through. First off, I'm going to show everyone the proper way to unthread a machine. Any of the modern machines should be unthreaded this way, whether it's Bernina or any brand you own. Best way is to come up here, right next to the very first guide, trim your thread there, grab it from the needle and pull it out. I just wasted 2 feet of thread. 2 feet of thread is so minimal in cost compared to $100 maintenance, because if you pull that thread backwards through the inside of the machine, the tension discs or the parts inside the machine start accumulating all this debris, and before you know it, it's not stitching properly. And you can seriously damage your check spring in there and it'll not sew at all. So always pull it the same direction as it sews. Think of the kitty cat. If you petting it backwards, it just doesn't feel right. So remember that. The next is I'm going to go through some tips on the D feed. The 7 series and the 5 series have the option to have a dual feed feature. The dual feed is a foot and a system that has a slot in the back of the foot and a dual feed foot that comes in from the back of the machine and fits in that slot. This helps the machine feed the fabric more evenly. However, there are some rules I want to give you. Whenever you have a D foot on, engage the back D foot lever. If not, there's not enough feed dogs to pull the fabric through correctly, and you'll have poor stitch quality. The other tip on a D foot is when you're sewing with it, you need to start with the fabric at about 1/4 inch behind the foot. If you don't, this D foot will jam the fabric between the foot and the D lever, and it'll just jam up the fabric there. So you want to start right in the beginning of your fabric. You use what they call a little leader. You take about a 2-inch square piece of fabric, you fold it up, you put it in front, and then you put your project right next to that fabric and sew, and that leader will let the project fabric start right at the beginning. If you need to secure your project fabric when you pass your leader, then you can go backwards and forwards a little bit to secure that stitch. But it's very important that you have a leader. I've seen some leaders that are so used you couldn't even see the color of the fabric. It looks like a man's beard. So use that leader and you won't have that D foot jamming up your fabric. The other thing is the thread. When you use a D foot, it is very important to bring your threads out to the left. A lot of people complain that when they're using a D foot, there's a bird's nest underneath their project. And the bird's nest is caused by the 4 or 5 inches of needle thread that when it takes the first stitch, there's no pressure on that thread and it ends up on the bottom of your project. And that can get jammed up in your hook on the bottom of your project. So the solution to that is to pull your thread to the left and then lower your foot on the thread. The foot will hold the thread, keep it at the top of your project. One of my staff likes to use the thread cutter over here and have it held on the left-hand side, and that holds the thread long enough for it to do the stitch and not get underneath your project. You'll always have a little teeny bit of bird's nest if you don't use a leader, because the thread catcher is holding the bobbin thread, so you have an inch or so of thread that has to go somewhere, so it'll be on the bottom of your project. But if you use a leader, all those little bird's nests end up on your leader and your project looks perfect from back to front. So learn about your leaders. Also, just get in the habit of pulling that thread to the left. Now we're going to look at the hook. So we're going to show you, we're going to take the bobbin case out. We're going to take this hook cover off and pull out the hook. So inside the hook there are 2 little pads. I recommend these get oiled about every month. They don't need to be oiled as often as the top part of the machine. I'm going to review that. So see these little pads? Use a precision oiler. Oil those pads. They don't take much at a time. And that centrifugal force brings the oil out to the edge, and it oils the inside of your hook drivers. I also check while I'm here for any thread that may be wrapped around inside the spindle here. So I sell these little Bernina 8 series tweezers. I buy them 20 at a time from Bernina. They are the best investment, probably one of the best price. I sell them for $4.99. Probably other dealers have them for under $10. And I have 5 of them at home. They're just wonderful. So this is all clean and it's all ready to go. Now I will look inside my hook holder, and I'm checking these little prong drivers. See this little silver thing right there, and there's one up here? That's what drives the hook. And what happens is thread, if you look real close, there's thread wrapped around this one. So I'm going to pull on that thread and watch how much, there's quite a bit that's just popped out of there. So you want to check both drivers. You turn it with your hand. That one's clean. Then underneath this little slot, you'll see little dust bunnies, little circle dust bunnies. Here's another piece of thread. So if you check this same time, about once a month, or if you have poor stitch quality, check around those prongs, and you will have a lot better stitching. Now, if you see there's a center metal ring or a circle, and then there's a circle right below it. It's either gray, some models have a green circle. So you want to set that circle directly straight down at 6 o'clock. And I'm going to show you a trick to put in your hook that is just, everybody's oohs and ahs over this. So now when you take your hook, you put the circle and the little hole at noon or at 12 o'clock. And then you bring up the whole little assembly here, and nothing latches, but you rotate your hand wheel back and forth, and you'll hear a little click. The magnet has caught. So rotate your hand wheel, and it's all set in there. And now this will fit in here. The other thing I see is people say that their machine says they're out of bobbin, but they're not. There's several things that could cause the machine to think it's out of bobbin thread. The mirrors on the bobbin can get literally worn off. And the machine is looking for those mirrors, and doesn't see the mirrors, it thinks it's out of thread. And it's looking for those mirrors right here on this bobbin door monitor. And there's little fish eyes right in here that need to be cleaned off with a Q-tip. Just keep several Q-tips in your sewing machine area and clean those out carefully. Then you'll want to inspect the inside of the bobbin case. There's a silver C-shaped metal spring. That's a bobbin brake, and that should be attached inside. None of the corners should be sticking up. And underneath there's a hair thickness of a spring. That should be all in place. If any of those don't look like they're in place, or they've been pulled up because thread got caught, take it to your dealer to have them repositioned, or you might have to buy a new bobbin case, which is quite expensive. If these are out of place, it jams the bobbin in the bobbin case and hook, and it could cause serious damage. You might have to buy a new hook too. So just keep an eye on that. Make sure there's no dust bunnies in there, because those little fish eyes I told you about are looking through these holes, looking for that bobbin spinning with the mirrors. So that's how that system works. The other thing is you might have your tray on here, and you had forgot to close the bobbin door. So always make sure that the bobbin case door is closed up. One good way to keep your bobbins from getting damaged is we have these cases that are hold 25 bobbins, and they hold them in like a foam rubber, so you won't ever damage your bobbins. These cases run about $30. You can buy them filled up with 25 bobbins for about $100 or $125, depending upon your dealer. And I sell a lot of these all the time. I try to keep a bunch in stock. And hopefully this will give you some tips, and you'll enjoy your 7 and your 5 and 4 series machines even more. Thank you. This is Bernina Jeff. Please remember to subscribe. Every subscription helps this get out to people that need to see it. And if you need to get in contact with us, my phone number is 970-256-1293. And my oil, that is Precision Tip, I sell for $12, includes shipping. So you may call and order that. And thank you again.